Hello there. As a part of the Cardassian versus Romulan military face-off, we're on a quick look, and this is going to be a quick look at the command structure of the Cardassian military, specifically how they commanded in the field. Of course, they had higher ranks with senior officers sort of commanding things back home. They had a military government after all, but so did the Romulans, so in those terms they're pretty structured the same. How do they match up though in the field? The officers and men and women actually doing the fighting on the ground, in space, aboard ships. The Romulans, of course, had commanders and sub-commanders. Same ranking system as we understand it, just a different name. A captain and a first officer, basically. And the basic structure of their militaries was actually remarkably similar, with the Romulans having, again, their military with the commanders and the sub-commanders and then admirals and things like that above them, all answering to a senate and a military government, which, although loosely had elections, didn't really, more just made pretense. And then they had, of course, the Tal Shiar, and we also now know about organizations like the Jacques Vache. But the Tal Shiar are the more important one in this particular scenario. The Cardassians, of course, had the Cardassian military government. They had their sort of admiralty level. We don't know much about that, but we can assume it existed. The senior Guls, things of that nature. And then we had the Guls at the command level aboard their ships. They, of course, had first officers who were often noted as being expendable and would be, properly flogged or executed if they did something wrong. And that was not unlike the Ferengi, actually. The Cardassian Guls, though, were basically the ship's captain. They also commanded outposts, and they also commanded military detachments on the ground. So in terms of ranking structure, unlike Starfleet and humanity that have captains on their ships and a naval-like structure for the vessels, the Cardassia, but they also have separately a military structure, so generals and colonels that command infantry units and the Starfleet Marines. The Romulans have a similar system with naval officers and then military officers, sort of army regiments. But it should be pointed out that the Romulans blur the line a lot more than Starfleet does, but the Cardassians, the line doesn't exist. Guls command ships, but Guls also command infantry regiments and occupations of planets. So there are too many Cardassian Guls to fully cover in this episode, but we'll focus in on 3 examples that were active during the year of 2365 when this fictional war is going to take place. And those are Gul Evek, Gul Macet, and Gul Dukat. Just going to quickly interrupt myself. I'm probably going to have to do this again. I realised when recording this video I kept saying Gul Macet and I meant to say Gul Madred. I noticed it while editing and it really annoyed me because I was talking about the wrong Cardassian Gul. Gul Macet is the character encountered first by the USS Enterprise, commander of a Cardassian Galler class ship. That's all great, but it is not the character that I talk about later in this episode. So, my bad, it's Gul Madred we're meant to be talking about. Apologies. Let's start with the obvious one. We'll go with Dukat. Gul Dukat is very well known for being the Cardassian that brought Bajor to its knees in a lot of ways. He would have lots of dealings with the Federation and the Marquis. To a degree, he was often a sympathetic character, but he was known to be kind of greasy, and he would switch sides depending on which way the wind was blowing. He's also later known for being a Cardassian that would, of course, bring Cardassia full steam ahead right into the loving, embracing arms of the Dominion. But all those are post 2365. At this time, 2365, he's still occupying Bajor. He's getting ready to pack up and leave, but he's around. So in these years, he's been mostly cooling his heels on Bajor, living the good life up on Terok Nor, mostly staying in orbit, chumming with Odo, and keeping a lot of Bajoran companions, shall we put it politely. Dukat was a bit of a dick. Let's remember that. But he's got a kind of an easy life, but he has got an experienced military background. He's earned that position. He, from his position of power, even believes egotistically that he is actually helping the Bajorans. He's enlightening them. He's helping them evolve as a people and make them stronger. He even thinks that they should build statues in his honor. He is very self-deluded. But it's symptomatic of what the Cardassians are like. Ego and bravado are very powerful motivators in their culture. It should also be noted that although there are a lot of high-ranking females amongst Cardassians, they mostly seem to be more in civil service units and in intelligence officers such as the Obsidian Order. There don't seem to be many, although there are some female Guls. We do meet one female Cardassian Gull, but they do seem to be relatively less common. I don't know if that's just experience from the Federation and, for that matter, Romulan side, but there certainly seem to be a few of them, but all the same. Dukat was an experienced officer, but he was something of a pompous, bloated windbag as well, to quote Colonel Kira, and his ego often got in the way, but he was tactically generally very sound, but he was also known for being very brutal when he wanted to be, but used it like a surgical tool. Dukat was smart enough not to be a blunt instrument. This was, again, symptomatic of what the Cardassians were like as a people. They were generally like this. They were smart people. The next, Gul Macet. Gul Macet was a different type of Gull. He didn't command fleets. He didn't command armies. He held a position within the Cardassian military that was quite unique. He's the Cardassian who infamously tortured Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Starship Enterprise, almost breaking him. His skills were that of a torturer. He used psychology and he used tactics. Again, the surgical implementation of pain, coercion, and just generally trying to outthink your opponents. Macet was smart enough to know that the Cardassians couldn't beat the Romulans, but maybe they could outthink them. And this is the kind of man you send in when you've got a Tal Shiar operative you want to break. You send in Macet. This man brought his own daughter into an interrogation because he wanted her to see how much better the Cardassians were than their enemies, how weak humans were, how inferior. A similar ego would be thrown against the Romulans. The next is Gul Evek. Evek was much more of a seasoned, more career, straight-laced military, brass boots kind of officer. He commanded his own ship. He engaged in battles with the Federation and with the Maquis. He was experienced tactical officer on the front lines. He's also believed to have possibly been at one point dragged to the Delta Quadrant by the Caretaker, but actually returned. But we don't really know that for 100% fact, but it's possible. He was known to be brave, if not foolishly so, even going as far as to take his ship into the Badlands after the Maquis. Not something a Cardassian ship was particularly well built for, but all the same, props for bravery. He was, as I said, a much more grassroots. He was your more A to B soldier, but he was definitely a competent military commander. Evek was also the head of the Cardassian Fourth Order, which was how the Cardassians sort of divided up the military divisions of their order, indicating he was a senior military commander. He often liaised with some of Cardassia's enemies, including the Federation, and he was known to have had a bit of a dry wit. Actually, sarcastically once saying, when contacted by Deep Space Nine, when they had an infestation of Cardassian voles, that perhaps the Federation should simply withdraw from Bajor, that would solve the problem. Despite everything, Guls held the position of power and authority and seemed to be able to wield a considerable amount of independent decision-making out on the front lines, with the Cardassian government entrusting a lot of, trust in these officers to do what was in the best interest of the Cardassian Empire, likely something that would come with harsh punishment if they failed in that duty. But how do they stack against the Romulan version? Now, I'd say in terms of capability, they're quite similar, but I would say that a Cardassian Gull has more autonomy and more free will and free reign to make independent decisions than a Romulan commander does. Romulan commanders, as we see from both Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Star Trek The Next Generation, that Romulan commanders are answerable more rapidly to organizations like the Tal Shiar, and they're definitely afraid of the Tal Shiar. A commander cannot override a Tal Shiar operative. They adhere to a much more strict military discipline, and it's not to say the Cardassians are not militarily disciplined, but the Cardassians do embrace this idea of simply trusting their officers in the field to do what is necessary to win. This trust actually breeds a sort of more capable officer, an officer that's not always looking over their back to see when they're going to be stabbed in it, Romulans, but actually it would create an environment where they would have the freedom to explore tactically and militarily options that maybe the Romulans would be restricted from using out of fear or out of simple doctrinal methodology. The Cardassians have much more free reign, so I think in that regard the Cardassian Guls have a bit more free reign. You can see this in the 3 examples I've seen, but if you actually look up many of the other Cardassian Guls, you see the same sort of thing. They seem to be able to make unilateral decisions in the field, much more like a Starfleet captain is trusted to do, which I find quite interesting. Just so I've recited them off, here's a list which you can check for yourself, is from, well, Memory Alpha, of every known Cardassian Gul. There are two, as I said, there are too many to go into, and I'm not going to break down each one, but there are quite a few. Gul Banil, Gul Brocca, Gul Kazajan, I may have said that wrong, Gul Dan Curry, I suspect him of being a traitor to the Federation, Gul Darheal, Gul Damar, Gul Danar, Gul Dalok, Gul Dukat, Gul Ivek, Gul Elam Garrick, that's of the Mirror Universe, but as I'm reading this from a list, let's include him. Gul Hadar, Gul Gary Herzl, another traitor to the Federation, Gul Jasad, Gul Lamek, Gul Maset, Gul Madred, Gul Marat, Gul Nador, Gul Oset, Gul Pirak, Gul Renor, Gul Revok, Gul Rasat, Gul Rasol, Gul Seltan, Gul Spumko, okay, Gul David Stripes, goddamn traitor to the Federation, Gul Turan, Gul Turan, Gul Trupar, Gul Tulet, Gul Vorlim, Gul Yaltar, and Gul Zariel. I think it's safe to assume that there are actually more of them, but the Cardassian fleet's quite big, but those are all the named Guls we know about. As I said, they're just captains in the fleet, but they are gifted the right to a lot of autonomy, despite the harsh military regime. Again, though, they're probably, if they fuck something up, they're probably going to be really harshly punished for it. But that is a breakdown of the Cardassian Guls. Let me know in the comments below, were there any that stand out to you personally? I always loved Gul Maset, and if you're interested, the 2 different Guls that Mark Alemo played were Gul Dukat and Gul Maset. These 2 individuals canonically are actually cousins. That explains why there is a vague similarity between the 2. Not that out of universe, as I said, they were just played by the same actor. No, they were actually 2 separate characters, but they were cousins. And again, as I'm recording this bit after I'd actually finished all of my editing and realised that the camera had cut off and not actually recorded the end of the video, apologies again. All throughout this video I've been calling Gul Madred Gul Maset. I was always intending to do it about Gul Madred, but for some reason, because I had it in my head about, I have to remember to tack on the bit about Gul Dukat and Gul Maset as actually being cousins, because they were both played by Mark Alemo and look kind of similar. I had that in my head, and I think I just forgot the name Madred. Whatever. If you're at the end of this video now, I thank you for watching. Apologies again for the hiccup in the recording process, and if you've enjoyed it, thank you for watching, and bye bye. I'd just like to say a thank you to everyone for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoy making these. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving a like, share, and a subscribe, and maybe checking out the other videos on the screen right now, and in the description box below there are links to my other social media accounts.